So we feel like we need to address this before the commentary starts, since it is an elephant in the room. While we were in the extremely late stages of production, the user in question, Kimimorra's trap brothel, was arrested and charged for some serious stuff. However, we won't go any further than that, since this is not what this commentary is about, and if you're curious in what he supposedly did, we will leave a link to a roundtable discussion of sorts where people, including his ex-girlfriend Meg, who Kimi was targeting, were in, where they discussed their experiences with him. With all that said, I hope you all enjoyed the commentary.
Poggers.
Hey, what are you doing here?
Oh god, Jesus Christ, I was not prepared for that. Well, you see, I'm waiting for Acronym to open so I can go to the ball pit, but it hasn't opened yet, so I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Hey, ow, 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 ouch, ow. Do you guys know where the titty is?
Did you really just walk in here and ignore my earlier conundrum?
I know what I said. Where it is, there's a new spot only for Simps 18 and older, and I want to see the memes they got.
Go on.
Well, I suppose now that I am technically a legal adult, I can take part in such devious activities now. But if I do, it'll trigger my trauma of almost being arrested for saying I'm 18 on Pornhub despite not being 18 at the time. Titty or...
To the Pizza Hut!
I gotta pee here!
Oh! What the fuck, Zenny? I thought you said there'd be a brothel here, but all I see is a dumpster. And it's not even Key's waifu.
I know it's not Little Caesars, but my sources say this is the place.
Well, I guess we don't need these.
As if you were gonna use them anyways.
Do any of you guys hear that?
Hey, wait a minute. It's a comedically large sock! Okay, now, wait, hold on. What's that right next to where we found the comedically large sock? It's a video about the top 10 anime I hate that everyone else likes by Kimimorra's Trap Brothel? Ah!
Oh god, not this shit again.
Who?
Avid hater of lesbians and gag characters. The one who declared war on Rooster Teeth's death battle. The one who makes really bad AMVs.
Oh. Dang it, I came here for a good time, not a boys and girl boys club.
I'm going to strangle this trapophobic prick. I'm gonna strangle him and leave him in his pile of swords.
Hey, does anyone else hear that, or have I finally lost it completely?
Seriously? You can hear that too, Sarah?
Hear what? Ah, whatever. What should we do with this then?
Now, we may not have gotten actual titty, but we could do this video.
Closest thing you'll ever give your dust to, Sarah.
Not that kind of do. I mean cover it, like a reaction video.
Feel the darkness in my mind. Roll the chaos solidify. No more chances, say goodbye. Poison.
This is Kimimorra's Trap Brothel, who's primarily known for making death battle videos, mainly by calling them incompetent for what feels like just about every chance he gets whenever they upload a new video, much less tweet. Well, back in March of 2020, he made a list of anime that he hates that everyone else loves, and needless to say, we found quite a bit of issues with it. We also want to say that our video was in production at the same time that Enigma Phantom was making his commentary, so we aren't ripping him off, or vice versa. And while we thought he did a fine job overall, we have other points to the table that he didn't bring up in his video. Also, in case Kimi discovers this video and gets pissy if we refer to him as Antcamp Otaku, or just Antcamp for short, his URL still says Antcamp Otaku, even after it was pointed out to him when he made live stream responses to one Fishmob's video on him and Enigma Phantom's parody song on him.
Yeah, what the Sam hell is that?
Rarely ever have I been compelled by a storyline in Dragon Ball Z. So it doesn't really do much for me, and Dragon Ball Z is one of those anime that really needs to die. Like, I get it, a lot of people love it, and it's been around for a long time, but you can't keep the same thing going for so many years. Eventually, you gotta just let it die and move on to something different. I can't help but to feel sorry for Akira Toriyama because he's basically trapped in this purgatory of only being able to work on Dragon Ball Z and maybe Dragon Quest on occasion, and he's not able to do much else beyond that or move on to something different because the fans insist on him continuing a story that should have ended a long time ago. I dropped out of Dragon Ball Z after the Cell Saga because Dragon Ball Z at that point basically became a broken record to me. It was the same shit over and over and over again. It's the same storyline with the same developments. All that Toriyama does is just change the variables around a little bit.
Now, you have to Dragon Ball has been going on since it started in 1984 until now, and that it's all Toriyama's ever worked on. But that's just not the case, given how Dragon Ball GT was the last piece of anime material that Toriyama was involved in, and it ended in 1997. and the series didn't come back until 2014 with the film Battle of Gods. Now sure, there was plenty of supplementary material for Dragon Ball in between that time, but to my knowledge none of it had any involvement from Toriyama himself. So to say that our boy Toriyama was forced to work on it his whole career is a blatant lie!
And that's assuming Akira doesn't want to continue working on Dragon Ball. Unless the man himself saying he's getting tired of spiky hair, lasers, and shouting matches, it's hard for us to believe you on this when you don't show anything to prove your claim.
Not to mention he's only worked on Dragon Ball and Dragon Quest. A simple search of what Akira Toriyama has worked on showed prior to Dragon Ball, he made Dr. Slump. Around the same time the DBZ anime was airing, he worked on the character designs for Chrono Trigger. And nearly a decade after GT ended, he did the character designs for Blue Dragon.
I mean, how many times does he repeat the same plot points over and over and over again before people finally get sick of it? I mean, I just don't like Dragon Ball Z. While I used to be a fan of this anime, I can't stand it anymore. Please, Dragon Ball Z fans, just let Dragon Ball Z die. Let Akira Toriyama work on something else. If Dragon Ball Z just ended after the Frieza or Cell arc, I would look back at it as an important piece of anime history, rather than an overrated, overhyped anime that has long stayed its welcome. Dragon Ball, to me, is the anime equivalent of The Simpsons.
Okay, but you yourself said that you dropped out during the Cell Saga, so if it had ended there, then it would still have the problems that you have with it, essentially meaning that nothing changes.
To be frank, I haven't seen a bunch of Dragon Ball, or most of the anime on this list for that matter, so it'd be good to give a lowly peasant such as myself some idea of what makes this show feel repetitive, no?
Yeah, what if I told you, Zenny, that this list only goes downhill from here?
Like Sarah.
You know what, that's fair.
Who in God's green bakery are you talking to?
Wow, that girl's hot. That's a guy. That other guy's handsome. That's a girl. That cat is cute. That's a dog. What is everything?
Number 9, Naruto. Now, as I mentioned before, this is actually one of the first anime I ever saw. And while when I was younger, I did think it was cool, as I started watching more anime similar to that of Dragon Ball Z, I just couldn't really come back to it. Actually, it never even got that far, because while I was once a fan of Dragon Ball Z, I never once considered myself a Naruto fan, because no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't get into it. Now, there are some elements of Naruto that I like, which is why it's so low on the list. I love the music, it's really good. Naruto has one of the best soundtracks in anime history. I love the action. Studio Pierrot does a good job. If there's one thing Studio Pierrot knows how to do, it's action. The action is always amazing, and it's always well animated, and I absolutely adore it.
And my pain is far greater than yours. Would love to have a word with you.
Nice to see that we played a full minute of that just for a meme. That was clearly worth the wait.
Shut it, Solar.
Seriously, who are you people talking to?
Yeah, what the Sam hell is that?
And another thing that's always bugged me is the pacing. I hated how they will bring the anime to a screeching halt just so Naruto can go learn some technique. This is what happened to me when I tried to rewatch Shippuden. I get to the part where Naruto is learning Winjutsu, and the whole fucking anime just comes to a screeching halt and nothing is happening. And you just think this is going to last for maybe like one episode. No, it goes on and on and on and on, and I'm so fucking bored. And by the time I get to any action, I'm just too bored to give a shit.
Nothing is happening, except for Naruto learning jutsus. Nothing is happening, except something that is happening. Wording out of 10, bleach again me, drink wood, yes?
Man, you gotta love how Kimimorra doesn't use any kind of clip or evidence to show how Naruto was an annoying protagonist to him, or how the show would go to a screeching halt just so Naruto can learn Simp Fu.
Never mind, too, that while Naruto is learning to utilize wind into his Rasengan, you have Shikamaru's character development, Asuna dying after the fight with Hidan even after Shikamaru tried to save him from Hidan's curse, Hidan and Kakuzu fighting what's left of Squad 8 and Kakashi, what Kakuzu is really capable of that wasn't revealed in the first fight. Nope, nothing happened during Naruto's wind jutsu training. Even if you were to argue the 12 Guardian Ninja arc, considering how vague you were, that's filler first off. And not only that, but you have the whole thing with Sora and how he is parallel to Naruto, given the monks seem to have despised him, much how people despise Naruto, since Sora is a pseudo-Jinchuriki, Sora's father Kazuma and how he ties into Asuma's backstory,
And let's not forget that one chick that was sucking Naruto's face and his chakra. Man, I wonder what would happen if she started sucking his dick.
Yeah, I'd rather not have that image. Although, it's still more appealing than most Naruto ships.
Indeed. Anyways, what's sad is, speaking as a fan, I agree that the Naruto anime does have poor pacing. But the example you gave is lousy because something we noticed with the series that you don't mention was they have a tendency to overuse exposition.
But again, I do understand why people like Naruto. I really do. However, I find Naruto to be a very hypocritical anime. And there's also a video out there called Naruto the Self-Made Hypocrite that is very well made and explains a lot of the reasons why I think Naruto isn't as good as some people think. But I won't get into that here. This is just my perspective on how I feel about Naruto. But if you are interested, I'll leave that in the description.
And before someone argues, hey, there's a link to a YouTube channel in that description. Ignoring how more than likely it's his backup channel, we tried it, and it doesn't work. Not to mention, you might notice that there is 2 YouTube video links in the description. I checked, and neither one is to Naruto the Self-Made Hypocrite, but 2 videos relating to Future Diary. This will come up again later. Plus, Kimi can't pull the same argument of it being during his outro that he did with Night Tie because we also checked, and it's not there. So we'll put the link to the video he's referring to in the description.
Wow, that girl's hot. That's a guy. That other guy's handsome. That's a girl. That cat is cute. That's a dog. What is everything?
Number 8, Princess Tutu. Now we get into the territory of the anime that I actually don't understand what people see in them. This is one of those anime that all I can think is, why? Like, maybe it's not for me, I don't know, but I have a funny story about this anime. So when I was in high school, I was a part of an anime club, and we had this lock-in thing where we basically had the whole school, the anime club had the whole school for an entire weekend, and we did a bunch of stuff. And one day we were watching anime, and one of the anime that was chosen was Princess Tutu for some reason, and I had to watch it because I didn't really have much of a choice. And I watched about, I want to say 10 episodes, maybe more, and I actually ended up passing out. No joke, this is one of the only anime I can think of that actually physically put me to sleep. It is boring, so fucking boring, I just can't get into it. I don't like the setup, I'm not really into the whole ballet aspect of it, like the fact that all these so-called action sequences are just ballet sequences, and the main character just talking to someone. I just don't get it, and the story is really, really stupid. It's about a duck that turns into a human girl that's trying to fall in love with a prince.
Except there's a little more to it than that. Basically, this storyteller named Drosselmeyer, who has the ability to have stories come to life, was telling a story between the prince and the raven, but he died before he could finish it. So the prince and the raven were in an endless conflict until they escaped the pages, where the prince took out his own heart and sealed the raven by using a forbidden power. It's weird as hell, but that's more than what you described. You want to know what's even sadder? All of that was given to you in the first episode, and there was far more to the story, especially when it comes to Drosselmeyer.
Okay, I'm less concerned about how his reasons for hating this show essentially amounts to, I don't understand it, so it's bad. And more concerned about his anime club if him stating that they forced him to watch it is anything to be believed. Like, was there nothing stopping you from just fucking off and yelling in the gym, fuck you, magical girl genre?
Yeah, what the Sam hell is that?
Number 7, Clannad. Ever seen a movie on the Lifetime channel? Then you've seen this anime.
And if you haven't, then you're screwed.
Yeah, what the Sam hell is that?
And no, the death of Nagisa is not sad. Do you understand me, anime community?
Wow, did you come off as pretentious here. I get you pinned your comment saying people shouldn't take the title seriously, but just because it's your opinion doesn't mean you could go around and act like a dick about it.
At least when you assumed Akira Toriyama needed more time to relax or work on projects other than Dragon Ball or Dragon Quest, that was for the benefit of another's well-being. Here, you were essentially pissing all over someone's funeral.
It's not that sad, guys. Stop crying over this fictional character whose death was already foreshadowed.
I ask of you, what is your malfunction? I have never seen Clannad, but based on your words, it's clear to me people didn't want Nagisa to die. They were interested in this character enough to say they didn't want her existence to cease so abruptly. So it's still a sad experience for them. Regardless of moving on or the flaws in the Clannad story, which you yet again don't elaborate on, these people share the same opinion on Nagisa's death because they didn't make such an absurd leap in logic.
Wow, that girl's hot. That's a guy. That other guy's handsome. That's a girl. That cat is cute. That's a dog. What is everything?
Number 6. Future Diary.
Okay, just hold on just a goddamn minute. So far, the animes talked about have received mostly positive reception, regardless of the actual quality of the segment. But isn't Future Diary one of the most controversial anime in recent years in terms of quality? So why would it be on a list of anime that everyone else likes if everyone else has mixed opinions on it?
Now, this is one of the anime I find absolutely frustrating. Now, with the other anime I just mentioned, I can somewhat see what people like in them, and can admit that some of my reasons for not liking it are a little bit more personal or maybe just not my taste. But this anime is the exception because this is one I cannot fathom why so many people love it. It's so bad. This is a very poorly written anime that I could actually make a whole review on why this anime alone is terrible. But let's try to keep this concise. Now, I will be honest, when I first watched Future Diary, I actually thought it was good. But then, when I watched it a second time, and I actually sat down and thought about it, I thought to myself, wait a second. This doesn't make no sense. These characters don't make sense. This writing is bullshit. And then I started watching other reviews of it, and other people started noticing the same criticisms I did, so I thought, okay, I'm not crazy, it's not just me.
The fact you mentioned that when you looked up reviews for Future Diary, most people were not fond of it. That could be seen as contradicting yourself in the sense of you just admitted that it's not well liked. For crying out loud, like I mentioned earlier, you linked 2 videos that don't put Future Diary in a positive light. So again, like what Sarah said, why is it on a list like this when you yourself admit this?
And while I will admit this anime had a ton of potential, it is completely wasted. This is one of those anime where you're constantly told you need to turn off your brain to enjoy it. I'm sorry, but if I have to turn off my brain to enjoy something, that's a bad sign. That means you're telling me that the anime is so fucking stupid that if I actually think about it, then it's not going to make any sense or I won't be able to enjoy it, and it boggles my mind how people don't realize that a problem.
Okay, while I do think this mindset doesn't apply to Future Diary, I think this argument against the shows you turn your brain off to mindset is flawed, given there are shows that are just fun to watch and not think too hard about, like Punching a Mountain in Symphogear, or building a mecha out of the universe in Gurren Lagann, or strip poker taken to its logical extreme in Kill la Kill, etc. As well as shows with slapstick like Tom and Jerry that people use to turn their brain off as a means of distressing and escapism, which is something that can apply to slice of life shows. Something you admitted that you watch anime for earlier. This very thing can apply to a lot of slice of life shows, like Maid-sama as an example.
Wait, why are we talking about Tom and Jerry?
Don't you know Zenny of the Swords? Tom and Jerry is my favorite anime.
The concept is interesting, and I really wanted this anime to be good because I'm a huge fan of the Battle Royale concept, and I loved the Battle Royale movie, and I wanted it to be good.
And then we have Battle Royale 2, which...
There was a Battle Royale 2?
Oh! Fortnite!
Is just whatever. It's just kind of forced, and it makes no sense like why Yuno is into Yuki, other than the fact that he's yandere bait because he's a little sissy bitch that can't stand up for himself.
Ignoring how it's really tempting to just say Yuno likes Yuki because she's muy loco, since she's just about never been portrayed as sane, there was a point in the series where after Yuno tried to kill Yuki's friends, in her underwear, while he was clearly out of it, Yuki actually does stand up to Yuno. Until they make sweet love later on, but I digress.
Hey, hold on. This is still a show about 14-year-olds, right?
Oh no.
Yeah, what the Sam hell is that?
Number 5, Fairy Tail. Yet another overrated piece of shit that is loved by mainstream audiences. For what reason, I do not fully understand. I really don't get this anime. I mean, okay, it is a gateway anime. I can get why, if this was your first anime, you could get into it. but it's really not all that good. This is one of those anime that at its best is just cliche, but at its worst it's mind-numbingly retarded. Like, most of the characters are just completely annoying or worthless. The only characters I could think of that are even worth half a shit is Wendy, Juvia, and maybe Mara Jade.
Mara Jade? Do you mean Mira Jane? I know that's minor, but considering before you uploaded this video, you made a drinking game of the Naruto vs. Ichigo death battle where you got on their ass for mispronouncing Zangetsu's name. Now, if it's unintentional, that would be one thing. But at the same time, it seems rather hypocritical that you'll get on someone else's case for botching up names when you are just as guilty of that.
Man, don't you just love it when the YouTuber actually clarifies on what they mean by useless instead of just throwing words around and expecting the audience to catch on?
Like, what makes the cast worthless? A lot of them either fight the bad guys or help the protags, so I can't say you're basing this off the contributions to the plot. If this was just some convoluted way of saying you don't like these characters, A, your wording is salad, and B, this hearsay is getting old. I don't understand having a distaste for a large chunk of the cast if you give me a reason to.
Also, how does Fairy Tail's writing being cliché inherently make it bad, since clichés in and of themselves aren't inherently bad, given most storytelling is built upon clichés? Sure, hypothetically, if they only used the bare bones of the clichés and did nothing with them, making the show bland and predictable, that would be one thing. But you don't expand upon the idea, which is a darn tootin' shame considering Fairy Tail is constantly scrutinized for overusing the power of friendship cliché. So it's not like there aren't overused clichés in the show. Yet you don't use this to help your point and once again continue to be one of the sources I'm going to cite in 3 years when I become an alcoholic.
On top of that, I went out of my way to dig up what issue people have with Fairy Tail, and ignoring that Kimi just expects people to take his word at face value for the umpteenth time, and not only are there countless videos titling Fairy Tail sucks, which suggests not as many people like Fairy Tail as much as what Kimi makes it out to be, thus placing it in the top 5 as questionable, but also that they have a tendency to use Deus Ex Machina and utilize...
Is it power of love?
What? No!
Big anime titties.
That's what I said.
For God's sake! Anyways, there's also the fact that one character you failed to mention here is Erza, who has accomplished far more than Mira Jane, and Wendy has made less accomplishments than Erza. What's worse is later on you claim Erza tries too hard to be a badass.
Erza is a generic badass trope that tries way too hard to be the cool badass character.
Just lovely.
The villains are all forgettable and stock, with the exception of maybe the main antagonist, but even then there's not really much to him. The storyline is often so bad that Fairy Tail will depend on fan service to hide from the lack of a decent script.
So it was big anime titties!
Called it!
Also, since I assume you're referring to Zeref, he had nothing going for him. It would be one thing if you just didn't care for him, but he had curses, a backstory that also ties to the Natsu's origins, he even led a nation that served as the main group of baddies for the final arc of the series, and that's just scratching the surface of his character. Again, it's one thing to say you don't like him, but to say that he has nothing to him is incorrect given all that he had done and or going for him in the series as the main antagonist of Fairy Tail.
So whenever something comes in the script that makes no sense or is stupid or poorly written, they will just shove fan service in your face. Now, I don't think that fan service is inherently a problem, but when you use fan service similar to how ecchi anime use it, and you use it to hide poor writing, that's not good. That is a bad writing technique.
What? How does fan service affect writing? Barring the lack of examples, again, unless there's so much ecchi that it gives you a distracting boner, I don't see how hot bods undermine what happens in Fairy Tail. Especially when being attractive was never used as some deus ex machina, or any plot relevance for that matter. There's only so many different ways to say explain before I'm driven mad!
And another problem with this anime is it basically has no stakes to it, because at no point do the villains ever pose any threat to the main characters. You know they're gonna win, and even if the heroes do temporarily get their ass kicked, they're going to, out of nowhere, become strong enough to take the villain down, or someone is going to show up out of nowhere to save them at the last minute, and it's just not very interesting.
And yet most of the shonen series, including Bleach, that you love, are guilty of this as well. Because of how vaguely you worded this, that can apply to so many shonen series. Like, how is it worse in Fairy Tail specifically?
Spoiler alert, he doesn't explain why it's worse in Fairy Tail, does it not of the shonen?
Of fucking course.
And it goes without saying, the main characters are mind-numbingly frustrating. Natsu and Gray have to be two of the most annoying, unintentionally gay characters ever made. Erza is a generic badass trope that tries way too hard to be the cool badass character. Fucking Lucy is completely worthless and does nothing.
Would be really nice to see you giving examples on how Natsu and Gray are two of the most unintentionally gayest characters ever made, much less saying Erza's a tryhard, because saying subjective shit and not bother to expand on them can only last for so long before it starts to become really lazy.
I don't see how Lucy is useless. I mean, come on, she can summon horny cows. That is a very useful skill.
Indeed. Anyways, as for the stuff that Lucy did that is actually useful, she fought when Natsu is incapacitated, closed the Eclipse Gate and prevented her bad future from happening, nearly sacrificed herself to prevent Natsu from falling down a waterfall, summoned the fucking Celestial King to deal with Mardgear, even if it was only temporary, and also destroyed the prison-like area called Cube, played a major factor in taking care of Acrologia's dragon form in the final arc, and plenty more examples than that. Yeah, Lucy is useless my ass.
Wow, that girl's hot. That's a guy. That other guy's handsome. That's a girl. That cat is cute. That's a dog. What is everything?
Number 4, Attack on Titan. Now, this is an anime that's very difficult for me to talk about, because of all the anime on this list, this one is probably the best, and I could actually recommend you watching it.
And with that, your criteria is now shit, because of all the anime on this countdown, it's probably the best anime, and you recommend it to people, yet it's number 4 on a list of anime you hate that everyone else loves. Before someone argues his comment not to take the title seriously, that still doesn't excuse this from being poorly worded.
The issue is that when I was in high school, and even past this, everyone kept telling me that Attack on Titan is the best anime ever. You gotta watch it, it's a masterpiece, it's so good. I was constantly getting hammered into my head that this was the best anime ever. I would go on YouTube, I would see YouTubers giving it all kinds of fake awards and stuff, so I finally get around to watching it. I watched the entire first season, and I've even read some of the manga, and I don't get it. I mean, I wouldn't really say it's a bad anime, but I don't get the hype. In fact, if anything, I would say that this right here is a perfect example of why I hate hype culture, because hype culture ruined this anime for me.
So it's on the top 5 because people hyped it up to such a degree that it made it a letdown. I get subjectivity and all, but placing something this high on a list like this because of a combination of hype and a difference of opinion seems like a very odd reason. Especially since one can make the argument of other shows like Naruto, DBZ, Fairy Tail, etc. have a considerable amount of hype behind them whenever something is released as a part of their respective franchise.
Now, I get that the fans and hype culture is not fully the anime's fault. However, even outside of that, there are elements of this anime that just don't really do much for me. I don't really like characters, especially in regards to Eren. I think he's a very frustrating character. I've never been a big fan of the whole hot-headed teen who's just always pissed off about everything.
Given the wording, it seems like you're referring to Season 1, which, if that's the case, he witnessed his mom getting eaten by the Smiling Titan. Not only that, but if anything, he's more determined. As for what he says later, we'll get into that.
I felt that his death scene was completely wasted. I actually think it would have been more shocking if Eren just stayed dead, but that's besides the point.
So, I guess you wanted Eren to be a false protagonist?
Then how would time shifting be introduced? Eren's father was the one who made those transformations possible, so the correlation made some sense. Are you suggesting a different character take Eren's place, either as the main protag or a false protag? If it was one of Eren's close friends that got killed and triggered Titan Shift, wouldn't that feel forced or cliched? If Eren really did kick the bucket and pass the baton to someone else who hasn't been established as a main character, wouldn't that come out of left field? Did Titan shifting itself contribute to this being a cop-out? I think simply saying you'd prefer one thing to happen over the other would have sufficed, without calling what we do have a cop-out. And that's ignoring how Eren continued to stay determined even after being swallowed alive, showing despite the odds stacked against him, we shouldn't count him out just yet, which would make his return to the fray not feel like a cop-out.
Clearly, Potato Girl would be the best protagonist.
Shut up, Sarah.
I find most of the characters to be annoying in the sense that everyone is so uselessly afraid. Like, they're so terrified of these titans that they just become little bitches about it, and no one wants to fight them, even though you have these hardened soldiers that are trained specifically to kill titans. They're scared by them so much that they won't do anything. And they're oftentimes just there for no other reason than to die, because killing off characters is really shocking, right?
Okay, imagine for a minute, you yourself live in the world of Attack on Titan, and you have to constantly live with the fact that giant naked men can eat your family and loved ones for the hell of it, with little resistance aside from the giant walls surrounding your city, the biggest one having only recently been fucked over by the Colossal Titan in the events of the series, and are extremely hard to kill by non-decapitation means. I'd probably piss my pants too a little on my first day of the job, not gonna lie. Or if I can phrase this in a different manner, regular people are afraid of wild animals like sharks and bears. Imagine if a bear was 50 feet tall and was after dead ass. Yeah. There's also the fact that new soldiers are going to be unsure of their skills and afraid of dying on the battlefield. TLDR, preparing for war and actually conducting war are two very different things, my friend.
Let's not forget, these are giant man-eating nudists that don't have genitals. What's scarier, the fact they aren't anatomically correct, or what they'd look like if they were?
And if you were referring to the beginning of the series, where the Armored Titan withstood cannon fire and broke through the inner wall, the fuck do you think those guys would do? Draw out their giant box cutters and run towards them like a bunch of madmen? If you're referring to the main group of characters during the Tross battle, at that point in the first season, it was their first mission, since training in real life is drastically different. Now, for the sake of argument, let's assume he meant later on in the series, like, say, the introduction of the Beast Titan. I'm pretty sure you would soil yourself if you saw something that big talking to you, and then leaving you to be munched on by Titans, especially since at that point in the series, none of the Titans were shown to speak. So with all that said, guess what the problem is here? If you guessed a lack of clarification, then congratulations! You see the major problem with not just this video, but also in nearly every Kimi video we have seen.
Well, no, when you don't care about most of the characters, or they're literally just there just to die, then it does nothing for me. And I don't really find the story all that compelling. I think it's just basically another apocalypse, humanity on the brink of extinction thing, except instead of just zombies this time it's titans. And in regards to the titans, I don't like the design of the titans. Now, the design isn't bad, it's just that these things are supposed to be very scary, and I don't find them scary. In fact, I find them laughable. It's hard for me to be afraid of these things when they're just so goofy. Now, I get that horror to an extent can be subjective, but nothing about these titans screams horror to me. The only Titan that I kind of liked was the Armored Titan because he had kind of a cool design.
What's scarier than a giant naked man?
A giant naked woman?
A giant, armored, naked Brock Lesnar. What? That's the only Titan Kimi mentions here.
It's up there with the greatest horror monsters, like Nux Taku, Freddy Fazbear, and the entire main cast of Kakigurui.
What about the My Hero Academia fan?
We do not speak their name!
But the Armored Titan doesn't show up until way later into the second season, so that doesn't help. I'm not a big fan of the female Titan. I don't find her to be a very compelling villain at all.
How in Jesus Crisp is the female Titan meant to be a villain? A threat to be reckoned with, sure, but an antagonist? All the Titans are meant to be monsters that kill humans. I get that the female Titan acts a lot smarter than any other Titan, but she isn't meant to have a reason to kill as far as we know.
And even if, for the sake of argument, you were referring to the human characters like Annie, you don't specify why she, or even her Titan form, is not a compelling villain. Wait a minute. Do they have a cure for deja vu?
Yes, it's called bleach.
Ho! Shots fired!
Oh my god! Shulms and Sarah were stand users the whole time!
You foolish mortals are no match for the power of Kesha, the stand that makes Twitter users horny as fuck for fictional women.
Yari, does he?
I don't get paid enough Kami-euros for this.
And other elements of it that I just don't like that are very tiny. While the animation for the most part is really good, I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like there's just this choppy outline around the characters that look like they're stickers or something like that. I don't know how to explain it. There's like this black outline around the characters, and I'm not certain if that's a stylistic choice or not, but something about it just drives me nuts. I don't really like the action. While everyone always says Attack on Titan has amazing action, it mostly boils down to Titan fist fights, which aren't really all that interesting. I mean, when you see some of the incredible, unique action sequences other anime have given us, like Bleach and Fate and many others, it just doesn't really do much for me. And I find the whole Spider-Man foo shit, I don't know what you want to call it, but I just find it as an attempt to like, oh, let's remind people of Spider-Man because they really like that.
Because the Beast Titan totally looks sticker-like. Also, outside of Blades, comparing the action of Bleach and Fate, for that matter, to Attack on Titan is apples to oranges. While yes, Attack on Titan and Bleach are shonen, one could argue the latter is more over the top, especially when it comes to the character's Bankai or Resurrection for the Espada. Fate, outside of Blades, tend to use magic, and some of the servants can get a bit weird. Like, need we forget about Jack the Ripper and Fate Apocrypha? And Attack on Titan, you can make the argument, is more focused on horror and more grounded in realism when compared to those other two series.
The comparison to Spider-Man is so much of a stretch, given how the only thing they have in common is wire-like string that attaches to walls to allow them to move around. Which doesn't even work the same way, given how Spider-Man wings on his web like a rope, while the Attack on Titan characters use it like a zip line or grappling hook, attaching two of them to walls on the opposite ends to get from point A to point B.
Everyone always told me, oh, would you just wait till you get to the basement reveal? It gets really good when it gets to the basement reveal. Okay, I read the manga, got to the basement reveal, and then it got brought to my attention that it was a red herring, and there's actually more to the story than just that, and I was actually told by many of the fans that I'm an idiot for thinking that Season 1 was ever supposed to be good. And I find the fans of Attack on Titan to be extremely pretentious. And while this anime does have some interesting themes, I don't think that themes are a substitute for some of the elements of this anime that I feel don't work, or just don't entertain me, and most of the first season was very boring for me. While it didn't put me to sleep like Princess Tutu, I wasn't exactly interested either, and the fans are very frustrating, because they say, oh, Season 1 is not supposed to be good. Okay, so when is it supposed to be good? Because I ran into the same problem with other anime. This reminds me of the people who defend Final Fantasy 13 by saying, oh, well, after 20 hours when you get to Grand Pulse, the game gets good. Fuck that. Why can't the game be good right now? Same with Attack on Titan. Why should I have to wait a full season or even two, because these fans can never be consistent, for the anime to get good? When is it supposed to get good?
I don't know any fan of the series who claims Season 1 of Attack on Titan was supposed to not be good. Bypassing the lack of anything, that just comes off as you stating something and expecting people to take whatever you say at face value. Also, I find it funny that you complain, why can't it be good from the start? When in one of your most recent videos on your favorite anime list, where you put another at number 1, you cut some slack because it's more of a slow burn, which one can make the argument is a bit of a double standard. And we all know how sexy double standards look.
Alright, look, listen. The reason why people are so lenient towards a show's first season is typically that this would be the most experimental part of a show, where the crew is trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. As an example, look at Avatar: The Last Airbender. That show is considered one of the best shows ever made by a lot of people. However, in comparison to its later seasons, Season 1 just didn't age the best. It still has good episodes, but overall the later stuff is just so much better by comparison. I mean, there's also the fact that Season 1 is structured differently from later Avatar, as Season 1 is more of an episodic show, where each episode is self-contained, ignoring the last 2 episodes in the context of that season. While Season 2 and 3 are more story-focused and have a lot more continuity between episodes, not only in those seasons, but in the previous ones before it.
There's also JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where Part 1, while isn't bad, is very different compared to the later parts. But thanks to the writer figuring out how to make Part 2 and onwards work better using earlier parts as stepping stones. Like with the stands, a concept for supernatural powers that stuck for the rest of the series since Part 3.
Sure, if a show like that doesn't interest you early on, then there's no issue with that. Not every cup of tea is meant for every lip. Just know that there's a lot more to a show than just the first impression.
Number 3, Akame ga Kill. This anime is hot fucking garbage. Now, this is an actual anime that I consider to be shit. While all the other anime on this list, you could find redeeming qualities in them, or they are good and they just don't personally fit my taste. With these next 3 anime, it is very hard for me to understand why anyone could like these anime because they're so bad. And that is especially the case with Akame ga Kill. There is so much wrong with this anime, I could make an entire review of it, but I'll try to keep this quick. So, Akame ga Kill is a anime with shit world building. Seriously, the main character's village is simply called The Village. Nothing more to it than that. The empire is just simply called the Empire's Capital. Wow, real imaginative, guys.
That sounds more like simplistic world building, if anything.
A lack of creativity in the naming department doesn't exactly say bad world building. As far as I know, the apt names could signify that these people only know of one village and one empire. Unless there is more than one of each and you're not telling us that, in which case it'd be your fault for not giving us a detail that would have driven your point home.
And everywhere is just so freaking bland. Like, there's literally, in one episode, a random stadium in the middle of the woods with no fucking context. The world building is shit. The characters are all one-note tropes with nothing to them. Tatsumi has to be the most bland, boring hunk of wood I've ever seen. His design is boring. There's nothing about him that stands out. His character, he barely even has a character. He's just some douchebag in a sweater carrying around a sword who wants to raise money for his village, and that's the only context we're ever given.
Yeah, because every protagonist has been tricked into staying with the people who tortured and poisoned his best friends to death. It's such an overdone trope nowadays. God. Hey, just wondering, is my sarcasm obvious enough yet?
Akame is just some tsundere assassin type. The pink-haired girl is some pint-sized tsundere. So on and so forth. There is a character in this anime who literally, his whole thing is, he's a neat freak that likes to clean stuff. The characters are terrible. And the reason why it's a problem is because these characters are written like horror movie cannon fodder, yet we're supposed to care when these characters die.
It's hard for you to care. Don't go lumping everyone into a box. This is supposed to be a list of anime you hate that everyone else likes, not bad anime. You're not compelled by these characters, while most people watching feel differently, and that's why the predictability of the deaths don't strike a chord. Based on your impressions, you're thinking of the character as set pieces instead of, well, characters, and because of what little information you offer, I can't tell if you're right or just being stubborn.
But not only are they one-note tropes, but the way in which they die is extremely predictable. Every time a character dies, about a few minutes before their death, we're given their backstory and then they die. It's difficult to care about a character when you give their backstory and then you kill them immediately. How am I supposed to care for that character? It does nothing when you do that. It's hard to get invested in the character. And the most frustrating thing about it is people would say that Akame got killed, like Game of Thrones, because the characters die. Like, really? Is mainstream anime just so pussyfoot with killing off its characters that people think that this is groundbreaking and compelling just because characters die? It doesn't matter if a character dies if you don't give a shit about that character or they're not interesting. These characters are written like horror movie cannon fodder, so it's hard to give a shit when they fucking die. And these characters are oftentimes moronic. Like, the only time the heroes ever succeed against the villains is because the villains are just fucking stupid. So anytime the bad guys have the upper hand against the heroes only get out alive because the villains just do something stupid instead of just killing the characters or taking an advantage when they have something against them.
The villains don't take an opportunity to kill them. Where the fuck were you during Shell's death, for example, where she was shot in the back by Siryu, ripped in half by Koro, and used her like technique to allow mine to escape before being eaten? Coming from someone that isn't the biggest fan of Akame ga Kill, especially the second half where it went full-on massacre, this point could have been presented better. Also, Akame ga Kill isn't as loved as what you're making out to be. Hell, I can confirm voice actors Jackie Lastra didn't care for the series because of everyone dying. I'll go into how I think you are basing on what anime is considered loved very shortly.
Number 2, Fate Khaled.
Number 2, Fate Khaled. The last thing you want in your Fate spin-off is gender-bent versions of the main characters having gay sex. But little do you know that may be what you get.
Burger King foot lettuce. Listen here, Buster Brown. There is only room for one Top 15's impersonator, and that is me. I am the one true god of Burger King foot lettuce, you absolute fool.
Anyways, ignoring you pause it for time, this is the segment I wanted to bring up in regards to what anime you put on the list. My best guess you based the anime over what rating they got on places like IMDb or My Anime List. And if that's the case, I fail to see why Fate Khaled is as loved as what you make it out to be, when those two places give it the average rating of it being mediocre or decent at best.
Now, I love the Fate franchise. I think it's one of the best franchises of all time, point blank period. Anime, video game, or otherwise. And as much as I love Fate, I hate this spin-off. Fate Khaled is not only the worst Fate adaptation of all time, but it's also one of the worst spin-offs of all time. Fate Khaled is the very reason why whenever I hear about an anime spin-off, I immediately become worried because I'm afraid it will end up like this. And everybody loves this anime, and the sick part is, I know why people like this anime, and I fucking despise it. People love it because it has all kinds of fan service and bullshit like that. It's basically Fairy Tail but cranked up to 10. It's an ecchi anime that's not an ecchi anime.
A quick reminder that the main's characters are all lollies. Illya, who is 18 in the original Fate Stay Night, is now a child in this spin-off, which just makes all the lesbo fan service even more creepy now, doesn't it? The inner English teacher in me is crying. So much!
Ignoring how it is really tempting for me to say, boy, well, I hate to see your reaction to Carnival Phantasm with how much you're getting on Fate Khaled for being a spin-off in the Fate franchise, I just want to say, God, I sure do love them spelling errors in that text. I've seen other countdowns for you, and whenever you have text, a lot of them have spelling or grammar errors. So I have to ask, do you even proofread your text before posting it online?
I don't get why you two are complaining. This is a very original complaint about fan service.
Fan service? Oh no!
And I hate it for that. Nothing that made Fate good or interesting is here. None of Nasu's brilliant writing is here. The action sequences pale in comparison to the action sequences that we got in Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night. The music, while is okay, the music pales in comparison to the brilliance of Yuki Kadra. The characters are infuriating. All the characters are nothing more than stolen characters.
Wait, hold the phone. It's funny that you complain about stolen characters, yet your channel background has a Stoffel from Fate Apocrypha, and we're not even counting your Teesprings merchandise, which is borderline another bearing situation waiting to happen.
That's without answering why both of you are using these characters to begin with. When it comes to the Fate series, they own the characters, while you don't and are using Astolfo's likeness in your merch? I don't know what legal systems allow or disallow this, but still, this doesn't seem like your place to talk about stealing characters. At least when this hasn't been addressed.
Beloved characters from Fate Stay Night, and they are changed. They take one aspect of their character and they crank it up to 10.
Small nitpick, but the idiom you're referring to is cranked up to 11, not 10.
Don't get me started on Kuro. I already addressed in my top 10 worst lesbian characters why she makes no fucking sense, and I'm not going to get into her here. And Miyu is a boring blank slate with nothing to her. This anime is written like a fucking glorified fanfiction because that's what it is.
Well, if that's the case, I better get to work on my Ogrenal Franfric 50 Shades of Gryffindor.
Doth thou needeth a smite?
Yeah, the least you can do is take notes from the greatest piece of fanfiction known as My Immortal.
Also, I'm pretty sure the character you're referring to is Chloe because I don't know about you, but there is a difference in design between this and this.
Number 1, Sword Art Online.
Oh, god damn it.
Ding 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 freaking ding! She did it, folks! I freaking called it!
What anime community do you come from where SAO is praised as one of the best animes ever? And how do I join? Okay, no, but seriously, SAO is one of the most controversial animes of the last decade that has a massive hate dump from Mother's Basement fans. I mean, critics. Like, yeah, sure, it does have its legitimate fans, but for every one person that likes it, there's like 15 other people waiting outside their house to break their kneecaps and take their body pillows. Before you ask, no, I'm not projecting here.
Yeah, about that. What if I told you guys later on in the video, he fully admits this anime is at best polarizing?
Ooh, goody!
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Anyone who is very familiar with me, or even my channel, probably predicted this one, but this has always been an anime that has pissed me off for the longest time, and to this day, it's still loved by so many, and I don't understand why.
I mean, it's not like it has good animation, excellent music, and a wacky cast of characters for people to grow fond to. But nah, dude, let's just ignore those factors because the Pope said it was bad, and as we all should know, his word is law. That's right, you're not allowed to like things if he doesn't.
Also boobies. We can't forget about the boobies. A shallow reason is still a reason. People like what they like, and just because you don't, that isn't something you just don't take a notice of.
Sword Art Online is one of the most infamously polarizing anime of all time.
Which is why it's number 1 on a list of anime he hates that everyone else loves.
Let me out. Let me out.
Me first!
Yeah, there are people out there that hate it like me, but there are people that love it, and I'm sorry, but if you like Sword Art Online, I don't know what the fuck you see in this anime. This is one of the all-time worst anime. It is not well written, the characters are a fucking joke. An example of how bad the character writing is, the writer Reki Kawahara himself admitted that the way he writ his female characters was offensive and even apologized for it.
Considering how Kimi doesn't cite shit regarding this, I looked it up myself, and I haven't found anything that indicated Reki Kawahara apologized for how his female characters were written, but rather in the context of how he used sexual assault in his stories, specifically one scene in Alakazation. big difference there, and we'll leave links regarding this, including a tweet Kawahara himself posted.
You know, it's bad enough I'm asking where more than I would seeing Carmen Sandiego's theme song. It's worse when the sources you probably could have shown don't even line up with your point. Writing sexual assault into one story is a very touchy subject, but that wasn't what you were going on about. Could the female characters have been written poorly? I could see that, but that's only because I've seen this show, not because of what you're saying.
So you have the writer himself admitting he didn't know how to write women characters, and the rest of his characters aren't much better. The story and concept is bullshit. One thing I always hate about Sword Art Online is how people try to say that it had an interesting concept. No, it didn't. The concept was done to death before Sword Art Online ever thought of it. Log Horizon, Stay Alive, Ben 10, hell, even Fairly Odd Parents had a fucking episode where they did the whole, if you die in the game, you die for real.
Keep Stay Alive in mind for later when he talks about how gamers are portrayed. You could guess how much that'll come back to haunt him.
Besides, interesting does not mean original. It means it is of interest. You may desire to interact or investigate it further. Well, not you specifically, you've gotten that point across already.
Even then, as far as I'm aware, Log Horizon never did the if you die in the game, you die in real life trope. Since the story was focused on creating a functional society now that they were trapped in the game world, and while yes, people did start losing their memories if they died in game, there was no fear of actually dying, so while yes, SAO did recycle the trapped in the game plot point, people dying in the game, dying in real life thing wasn't ripped off from Log Horizon, you hack.
It is not interesting. It is not a new concept, and it's fucking stupid, and the way it's written is fucking nonsensical. The main villain is so bad he has to cheat to beat the main character and forgets his fucking motivation.
And going by that description, you're only talking about the first half of the first season, which, to play devil's advocate, he did say it was so long ago that he forgot. Oh, don't get me wrong, it's a cop-out explanation, but at least it's something. Never mind that the other villains have more clear motivations, such as in the second half you have Sugo, who basically trapped people as guinea pigs for some mind control related thing.
Don't forget trying to forcibly punch an us in his V-card.
I was getting to that. Anyways, we then have Death Gun, who believed the game and real life were the same, but we'll just say he's crazy. And let's not forget Tetsuhiro Shikimura from the movie Ordinal Scale, where he was getting revenge for his daughter, who died in SAO by basically taking the memories of the survivors to make an AI version of his daughter. The sad thing is, yes, I agree, the way they handled Akihiko Kaiba in the Aincrad arc was not very good, but considering how the end of the Mother Rosario arc tied back to him, it appears there is more regarding Kaiba that the series might reveal over time.
That begs the question of how many contrivances warrants the entirety of the writing to be bad. Again, I know where you're getting at now. Kirito being the only person to dual-wield swords, essentially coming back from the dead, converting an AI into an in-game item, as it's in the process of being deleted in a matter of seconds. There is an ample supply of odd and contradictory writing choices that can prove your stance. You do explain some of those, right?
That's how bad he is. And don't get me started on Kirito, who is an overpowered Gary Stu who it just does whatever the writer wants him to do. He's a fucking tool. He's not a character. He's just a fucking piece of shit Gary Stu, and I fucking hate it. I hate everything about his character.
Ah, but don't forget, lad, he's also into the Portuguese breakfast. What?
You know exactly what.
Maybe anime was a mistake after all.
But in all seriousness, going by the definition of a Gary Stu, while you aren't entirely wrong, especially when it comes to the side characters being mostly useless without him, as far as being invincible goes, since that is usually associated with a Gary Stu, did you forget about him not being able to save the first guild he was in? Or better yet, the Mother's Rosario arc, which actually showed Kirito losing to Yuki via Time's Up?
Or needing to come back from a game over in order to beat Heathcliff without his cheats. Call hacks all you want, the fact he needed this hack in the first place shows he's not invincible in the traditional sense.
The sad thing is we all agree the writing in SAO can be really, really shoddy, but this could have been done far better.
There's nothing to Kirito. The romance is painfully, badly, poorly written. Even though this anime had A1 Pictures and Yuki Kadra at its side, it still looks terrible. The soundtrack in this is probably the worst Yuki Kadra has ever done. It is so cringy that one of the songs is literally just the lyrics, coffee, soda, repeated.
Man, I'm so glad we're taking a joke Giguk made 7 years ago seriously and treating it like it's an actual criticism of the music.
It's almost like the lyrics are in Japanese or something, and they merely sounded like English.
Conti stora arti asa morti stora midi porti.
It's so fucking bad. And A1 Pictures, their talent is completely wasted on this. I don't know why A1 Pictures always chooses the worst fucking scripts to animate. There is nothing good here. The fight scenes are not good because whenever a fight scene happens, it is either too close to the point where you can't see what's going on, or it's too far away and blocked by shitty effects so you can't see what's happening. The game elements are insulting. If you are a gamer, how can you like Sword Art Online? Because this was written by a person who knows nothing about video games.
Yet you mentioned Stay Alive, an American horror movie, where even if we are ignoring its portrayal of gamers, when we have questionable lines like this...
Your wife and kids are driving you nuts. Maybe a little something to take the edge off? Some with a high frag count, I presume.
And that Elizabeth Bathory owned a plantation in Louisiana, despite her being dead over a century before the United States was even a country, got facts about certain video games wrong. Need we forget about the main character claiming there is a Hyper Blaster in Silent Hill 4?
I'm sorry, we're not still talking about Silent Hill 4, are we?
Well, yes.
I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, you got the Hyper Blaster.
Do I look like an asshole? Yes, I have the Hyper Blaster.
Or how to beat the final boss in said game was to dump the ammo, even if you have unlimited ammo?
Yeah, dump it. I mean, it's got unlimited ammo.
No. I need it to get to the final boss.
Well, and beat her straight up. It's the way God intended. It's easier to kill her without the blaster than it is to with it. So just lose her right before going down the stairs. She'll die on her own. Game over.
Next time you use something as an example on how SAO is unoriginal or the game looks like shit, maybe don't use one that'll come back to bite you in the ass.
Oh joy, this'll be great. What does SAO being a bad game mean here? It'd be a bad game in our reality, sure, but that doesn't really affect the show's writing. In fact, that could work in its favor, having the odds more stacked against the players stuck in this death game, raising more suspense and drama. It's not something that's been addressed within the anime itself, making it a missed opportunity, but again, this isn't an issue you point out and just say the game is bad with no reason why we should care.
Not to mention that SAO's portrayal of gaming being unfaithful is something people are well aware of already, so it just seems like you're preaching to the choir at this point.
So after Kim not understanding the concept that people can like something he doesn't, again, the video ends. Final thoughts, anyone?
This has got to be one of the worst countdowns I've seen in a while. A majority of this video is just bold claims without any citation to make those words have meaning. Even if he did have citation, the tone of your voice makes it incredibly difficult for me to pay attention to what you were saying on my first viewing. Which in a medium like YouTube videos where hearing the presenter is important is a bit of a yikes. TLDR, don't constantly sound like you're dead inside, show what you're talking about so people who are unfamiliar with what you're discussing can understand your point of view. And maybe don't claim that a show that many people vehemently hate is an overrated anime. That's all I have to say. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Wanna smite Cranberry? To start, your opening statements, one in particular being emphasized in a pinned comment, have been bugging me. How your countdown was made more with the intent to share your thoughts. Doing so is fine and well. Shame that intentions seem to be thrown out the window when many of your personal gripes fell under flawed or unfounded reasoning. Some entries you outright claim to be the worst even outside of your preferences. The video's title doesn't fit entries like SAO, Fairy Tail, and Akame ga Kill that have had their share of negative reception and criticism, and thinking along the lines of popularity would mean Akame ga Kill, Future Diary, and at the very least Fate Khaled would be considered stretching for entries when you never specify how much renown is required to be popular in your eyes. Speaking of specifying, good God in heavenly donuts, do you leave out so many details I'm starved of explanation. Without having seen the anime firsthand or letting Shomes fill in the gaps, I'd be stuck wondering if what you presented held up or even made sense. Very little about the plot, writing, characters, the freaking premise of the show, etc. were barely elaborated on. Just that they're bad in some regard. My biggest question in life now is what kind of action happened in Princess Tutu. I should not be pondering so much about a duck-turned-ballerina. And it all comes back to your opinion and how the difference between fact, fiction, and funness become unintelligible. Call a foreshadowing all you want. Stuff like that should not dictate how everyone should feel about a character's death that you didn't care for. This is bad, that's not good. Why are you not thinking the way I do? It's a thought process you constantly push. Or if that wasn't what you were going for, you did a poor job not conveying it like that. I don't have much else to say, really. Other than work on explaining yourself more, and if you're going to do another subjective countdown like this, try not to lean so heavy on the objective stuff, without something to support yourself.
You know, it's funny. When I commented on your original list of the worst death battles, where you left numerous comments on it, and ignoring you saying train surfing when it's trend surfing, you said how that was when you started out and you've improved a lot since that video. What's your excuse for this video? Because outside of a 4-minute long intro and putting something on the list when it wasn't out yet, literally this list has the exact same problems as that list. You did a terrible job backing up your points, whether it's elaborating or showing it, even if it's just a still image. Also on your second Twitter that I'm aware of before it got deleted by Twitter, I noticed you cited James Rolfe's list of popular movies he doesn't love, and in numerous comments you have stated that you cite the AVGN as an inspiration. Well, I have my own issues with that list considering I made a one-shot in it years ago. There is one major difference between you and James Rolfe. Say what you will about the newer AVGN videos, but at least it's obvious when James is being himself on camera and when he's playing the character. In the other videos I have seen from you, and even tweets from your current Twitter account, I'm going to be blunt. I hardly notice a difference, even when it's on a serious topic like this tweet, where it could be argued you severely downplayed the coronavirus while we're in the middle of a pandemic, why you don't like Pride Month, or even the Vic Mignogna situation from over a year ago. So either you need to make the differences between you, the person, and Kimimorra, the character, clear, or you're using the character card as an excuse to act like a total asshole online and looking for an e-fight. If it's the latter, given the Twitter responses I have seen for people like Monocriol, Linkara, Kaiser Neko, or even this tweet from your previous Twitter account where you seem to be giving someone a death threat or at the very least an ill wish, and let's not forget a screen recording Neko Shadows did showing a taste on how you acted Enigma Phantom's public server, then actually own up to that, because at least you'll be an honest asshole. Speaking of those other videos, when you have shown clips, the editing is so bad, ranging from mistiming on the visual and audio to those clips not showing the point you're trying to make, or you show something that makes it even worse, to even filters that don't make the video appealing to look at. The biggest advice is if you do script your videos, not only make the differences clear, but also look it over and not just improve on elaboration and or showing the examples, but also what points are good and what is better left on the cutting room floor.
Alright, super cool sexy time is over. Back to boring business hours and waiting for Acronym to open.
Wait, weren't we buying a dumpster? How in the world did we end up back in Acronym?
Yeah, I didn't even get to order pizza. This blows.
Oh, thank God you guys are awake. I had to drag your asses back here. Why were you sleeping next to Chernobyl Video's dumpster?
That's an actual thing?
Surprisingly, yes. Unlike Sarah's chances of scoring.
Listen here, creature of the night who does not belong in this world! You're not wrong, but you didn't have to say it.
Well, the first thing you're gonna want is some chemo after sleeping next to that horrible place. So get in. Nurse Kirby and Joni are waiting.
Wait, Kirby is a doctor?
No, I'm not prepared for my 4 p.m. dick flattening.
Hey guys, I'm back from getting my pizza. How are you all doing?
I mean, aside from suffering from cock and ball torture, pretty good.
How did you survive? How did you die?
Gamers never die!
It's an ecchi anime that's not an ecchi anime.
A quick reminder that the main's characters are all lollies. Illya, who is 18 in the Ogrenal Fate Stay Night, is now a child in this spin-off, which just makes all the lesbo Fran service even more creepy now, doesn't it?
What? What? Does anybody proofread this shit?